This is a curved wave pattern I made, and I can't find the battery for my laser since it died. Otherwise I was going to make it again. But you can see here the different sort of frequency rates and interference portions. There's a lot going on in this photo, and I turned it into a meme for a science forum, which they would not post. It's funny how a real science joke, an original one, is ignored on a science forum. But when I was studying the double slit and theories on time, I realized you don't need two slits. It didn't make any sense. And how you explain the double slit is more of a quantum interference of quantum atmospheres in my own theories rather than contemporary physics theories, which don't make sense to me. Only until now, in my gravitational field model, did the double slit really start to make sense. How can a photon go through both slits at once? Well, it's not really, it's what a photon is made out of and how a photon functions to create frequencies and interference patterns. And so you can see how these four dots right here, they want to make a grid. This whole thing would be a grid. And the light itself isn't actually curving, though it looks like it's curved. It's a trick I did using a special surface, and when I get my laser fixed, I'll make a video to show how you can do it. I guess people just aren't that crazy about quantum physics as I am, but there's a lot that you can do. One time I got a shadow to rotate 45 degrees, and now back to my original point where I was making this video and how that correlates to my theories of time as a perfect constant with infinite velocity and infinite density. A true constant. That's other stuff, and that's something else. That's philosophy, and I used to like to make humor out of the things that I would do. Anyway, so this is how I disproved Einstein's light clock. When you increase velocity of the two receptive points, the distance between those receptive points increases. So if that's your constant of measurement, as you increase velocity, time is equal to velocity over distance. Or distance over velocity. It really doesn't matter. It just depends on how you want to correlate everything. But you can see that the orbit of an electron, as velocity increases, there's two different distances happening, and the electron is its velocity is warping. Its time isn't warping. Time remains a perfect constant no matter what happens. But from A to B and B to A, eventually, to maintain your distance, these are going to have to come closer together until you reach a certain velocity where the electron or the photon, excuse me, is traveling in a straight line. And then, this all leads into what did he call it? Colored glass condensate, which is a whole explanation why we cannot travel at the speed of light, and it's never possible. Because the electron and the nucleus of the atom will be traveling at the same speed. Anyway, and this all goes into a whole physics theory that I've come up with. But this is how I did it with a rubber band. And this is really hard to demonstrate with the phone that I have to hold, but and a rubber band that don't want to lay flat in my lap. You can see here that if you take a rubber band and you mark 1-inch marks on it, some of these got wiped off, but 3's enough. You take 0.1, attach that to A, and 0.2, attach that to B. As velocity increases, the rubber band is stretching. I don't know if I can do this with my stupid phone, so, but so you can see as velocity increases, the rubber band stretches, and eventually it's, you know, after it reaches its match elastic potential. Now, if you were to redraw those inch marks, so as it's stretched out, you take a ruler and you redraw inch marks. That's going to be another inch. That is your A to B. That's your 1 to 2. Except, as velocity slows down, the rubber band restricts back to its original elastic potential, and time is now relative between A and B at its original, point and coefficient as compared to its accelerated potential. And so this all goes into something I call a time-derived differential probability. Yeah, I never really finished. Is this it? Yeah, this is it. Because I came upon this later, this explanation later. But I would travel down this hill that I lived at, go to the store. We had a traffic light. And I think in one direction, east to west, it explains it here. The light would stay green, I think, for 15 seconds and red for 30 seconds. But going north and south, it would stay green for 30 seconds and red for 15 seconds. And this drove me nuts for years. Just drove me crazy. Until one day I was walking down. And at this time, this is when I was thinking about quantum atmospheres. Quantum atomic density. I'm going quanta, or sub-quantum science. Physics. And it just hit me. The probability doesn't make any sense. I don't have a consistent probability of encountering a green light in either direction. It's actually warping. And depending on my velocity, I could correct that probability and encounter a green light. Or if I remained at a constant velocity, as opposed to my rubber band, where I'm keeping the rubber band at a consistent time coefficient, that we can look at time as a constant. It's that time isn't relative, it's probable. And that's when I invented relativistic format and equivalent format and try to equate them. And this explains quantum physics in a way, but it's a whole mess of things. It takes ages to explain. And I was trying to correlate it to a wheel to explain the rotation of a wheel. But then it's easier to just write out in a problem or a table. So in this table, light is green 15 seconds, 14, 13, 12, and so on, versus red at 30 seconds. Red is green at 15 seconds. And what that means is in 1 minute of you encountering... Excuse me, what the fuck, man? What the hell did I drink? Give me all these nasty burps. Versus north and south, that you have variable probabilities of encountering a green light in 1 minute time span based on when you initiate the perspective to encounter, whether you are stationary or moving. And so I haven't worked on this in a very long time, so that's why I need to get it out of my head. But A equals B, which means T equals C. So if A and B are your constant, and at a max velocity, A and B equate to keep time consistent. So put simply, time is an infinite velocity and an infinite density. No matter where you are in the universe, however you encounter a moment, say a moment of inertia, time is still passing relative to that across the entire universe, as it is here. It's how you encounter that moment that creates a probability for time to appear to fluctuate. And when you get into my gravitational field model, you can see that polar moments flux between a center point of initial interaction to after interaction. And this correlates to a whole series of improbability, which we will not get into yet. But that is how you disprove Einstein's light clock with a rubber band and prove time is a constant.